One seemingly ordinary evening, a single father happened to see an elderly homeless man hunched over, rummaging through a trash bin for something to eat. His body was frail, trembling from hunger and cold, his eyes vacant like someone who had lost all memory. The father could have looked away. His own life was already heavy enough, raising a young daughter alone after his wife died from a severe illness, debts piling higher each day, but his heart wouldn't let him. He stopped, handed the old man a proper meal, and then made the decision to bring him home, just like everyone else who kept the building running, while she collected the credit. Before we continue this incredible story, if you believe in the power of kindness and love stories that remind us what really matters, please subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling us about a time when someone's kindness changed your perspective. Your support helps us share more stories that warm the heart and inspire the soul. That small family, just him and his little girl, opened their door and their hearts, welcoming the old man like a lost relative. They gave him a warm place to sleep, hot food and a roof over their heads, when they themselves struggled to keep every day. In return, the old man did everything he could to repay them, helping with cleaning, carrying food, wiping tables at the small diner where the father worked, never taking a single cent. What the single father didn't know was that the man he took in was not just a pitiful, homeless stranger. He was someone who would change the family's entire life forever. The evening air was crisp, carrying with it the smell of grilled food and fresh bread from the little shops. Along the street, the neon sign of Maple Street diner buzzed softly above Adam Hollow's head as he pushed open the back door and stepped into the dark alley behind the small restaurant. His shift had just ended. His arms were exhausted after hours of wiping tables, pouring coffee, carrying trays heavy with grease. The day felt as long as any other day, and he still had to walk back to the tiny apartment where his daughter, Sophie, was waiting for him. As he dragged the heavy trash bag toward the dumpster, something caught his eye. A shape sat slumped near the mouth of the alley, half hidden in shadow. At first, Adam thought it was just a pile of discarded blankets, but then he saw movement. Someone was curled up and trembling. It was an old man, his shoulders hunched against the cold, his thin hands rummaging through a torn plastic bag full of breadcrumbs. His grey beard was tangled, his clothes stained and torn. He looked so frail it seemed a strong gust of wind could knock him over. Adam stopped, gripping the trash bag. He had seen homeless people around this area before, wandering near bus stops or sleeping curled up on park benches, but he had never stopped to speak to any of them. His mother used to tell him they couldn't afford to help others, when they couldn't even pay the electric bill. Yet something about this old man made Adam pause. Maybe it was the way his fingers shook, or the profound emptiness in his gaze that mirrored Adam's own hidden despair. Without a second thought, Adam walked back into the diner and used his own meager tips to buy a hot meatloaf dinner and a cup of coffee. He returned to the alley and knelt, offering the food. The old man stared at the plate, then at Adam, with a confusion so deep it was heart-wrenching. He took the food with mumbled, incoherent thanks, his movements slow and painful. As Adam watched him eat with a ravenous yet delicate desperation, a conviction settled in his bones. He couldn't leave him here. "Do you have a place to go?" Adam asked softly. The old man only shook his head, his eyes cloudy. "My name is Adam. I have a small apartment. It's not much, but it's warm. You can stay tonight." The decision, made in an instant, felt both terrifying and irrevocably right. That night, 8-year-old Sophie, a wise-eyed girl with her mother's gentle smile, didn't flinch when her father brought the stranger home. She fetched a blanket and her spare pillow without being asked. They called him Mr. Elias, a name that seemed to fit him when Adam found a tattered library card in his coat pocket. With that name partially visible, Mr. Elias slipped into their lives with quiet gratitude. He remembered almost nothing, not where he came from, not if he had family. His past was a blank slate, but his hands were not idle. He insisted on earning his keep. He began accompanying Adam to the diner, not as a customer, but as a helper. He'd wipe down counters with meticulous care, sweep the floors until they shone, and organized the storage room with a surprising sense of order. He never spoke much, but his presence was calming. At home, he'd help Sophie with her puzzles, his long, thin fingers carefully placing pieces, and sometimes a flicker of something, a vague recognition, would cross his face before fading away. Months passed. The little family's financial struggles didn't vanish, but they were eased by Mr. Elias's unpaid help and the simple joy of his company. He became a quiet grandfather figure to Sophie, who would read him stories, and in turn, he'd sometimes hum faint, melancholic tunes that no one recognized. The change began subtly. One afternoon at the diner, a regular customer, a loud, impatient businessman, was berating a young waitress over a mistaken order. The manager was absent, and the scene was growing ugly. Mr. Elias, who was wiping a nearby table, stopped. He straightened his stooped posture, a movement so unusual it caught Adam's eye. He walked over to the table, not with the shuffle of a frail old man, but with a measured, authoritative stride. He placed a hand on the back of the customer's chair, speaking in a low, steady tone that Adam had never heard before. It was firm, diplomatic, yet carried an undeniable weight. "Sir," he said, his voice clear and devoid of its usual tremor, "the mistake is being rectified. Your composure, however, is your own responsibility. Let's allow the young lady to do her job with dignity." The customer, startled by the transformation in the old homeless man he'd vaguely noticed before, blinked and sat back, muttering an apology. The diner fell silent for a beat. Adam stared, his dishcloth frozen in hand. Who was that man? Later, when Adam asked him about it, Mr. Elias just looked bewildered, the clarity gone from his eyes, replaced by the familiar fog. I don't know. It seemed like the right thing to do. He mumbled, shrinking back into his gentle, forgetful self. Then came the flood. A massive storm overwhelmed the city's drains, and water poured into the basement of their apartment building, where the main electrical panel was housed. The building superintendent was panicking, and an electrician couldn't arrive for hours. As water inched toward the live wires, sparking dangerously, Mr. Elias, drawn by the commotion, looked down the stairs. Something clicked. He pushed past the superintendent, his movements suddenly decisive. "Get me the master breaker switch. Diagram for this building and a set of insulated tools. Now!" he barked, his voice ringing with command. Stunned, the superintendent complied. For the next 20 minutes, Adam watched in disbelief as Mr. Elias, knee-deep in filthy water, directed people with precision, tracing wires and isolating circuits with the expertise of a master electrician or an engineer. He averted a major fire, restoring partial power to the building before the professionals even arrived. When the crisis was over, he was shivering and confused again, unable to explain how he knew what to do. The final piece fell into place a week later. Adam, battling a mountain of medical debt from his late wife's illness, received yet another threatening legal notice. That evening, looking defeated, he left the papers on the kitchen table. Mr. Elias saw them. He picked up the dense, legalistic letter, and as his eyes scanned the page, another transformation occurred. His gaze sharpened, his brow furrowed in concentration, not confusion. He took a pen and began making notes in the margin in a precise, elegant script Adam had never seen him use. "Adam," he said, and his voice was different, educated, analytical. "This is a predatory collections practice. The statute of limitations on this portion of the debt may have expired. They are relying on your fear. You need to file a motion to dismiss, not a payment plan." He spoke for 10 minutes, citing legal precedents and procedures with flawless clarity. Adam and Sophie could only listen, mouths agape. When he finished, he looked at their stunned faces, and the knowledge seemed to drain from him. He sagged, looking lost. I said something, didn't I? Was it wrong?" That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He went online, typing in the fragments he remembered from Mr. Elias's impromptu lecture. The specific legal terms led him to a news article from several years before. It was about a celebrated, brilliant corporate lawyer named Alistair Finch, renowned for his strategic mind and formidable courtroom presence, who had disappeared without a trace after a tragic car accident that killed his wife. The article mentioned he was presumed dead or suffering from severe amnesia. The photo accompanying the article, though of a man in an expensive suit with neatly trimmed hair, was undeniably the face of the gentle, lost soul now sleeping on their sofa. Adam's hands trembled. He had brought home not just a homeless man, but a legal genius who had lost his entire world. The next morning, Adam showed the article to Mr. Elias, Alistair. The old man stared at the photo for a long time. Tears welled in his eyes, not of recognition, but of profound sorrow for a life he could not grasp. "That man, he seems very sad," he whispered. Adam made a choice. He didn't contact the law firm or the newspapers seeking a reward. Instead, armed with the knowledge of who this man truly was, he gently began to help him piece himself together. He brought him books on law, played classical music Alistair Finch was known to love. The memories didn't come flooding back in a rush, but glimmers returned, a love for chess, the structure of a legal argument, the melody of a specific sonata. With Adam's patient support, Alistair started to reclaim fragments of his formidable intellect, not for corporate battles but for a new purpose. Using his resurfacing knowledge, he helped Adam formally settle his crushing debts for a fraction of the cost. He began offering quiet, pro bono legal advice to other struggling regulars at the diner, helping them fight unfair evictions and navigate bureaucratic mazes. The man who had been saved from the alley now used his rediscovered gifts to save others. He never returned to his old life as Alistair Finch, the powerful lawyer. That man was gone, his past too painful to fully resurrect. Instead, a new man emerged, Elias, who remembered enough to use his talents, but chose to stay with the family that had given him a new name and a new heart. He became a permanent, beloved part of Adam and Sophie's life. Adam's act of kindness in a dark alley had not just given an old man a roof. It had returned a lost soul to himself, and in doing so, had woven a thread of unexpected grace and resilience into all their lives, turning a story of survival into one of profound redemption. The father's heavy burden grew lighter, not because of sudden wealth, but because he had gained a true family, proving that sometimes the most extraordinary fortunes are found not in seeking reward, but in offering mercy.